It's registered 0 at the moment. Yeah, okay, people are joining us now. Okay, we're getting up there, figures. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. We start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and bestowing peace and blessings upon the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and all those who follow in his righteous footsteps until the day of judgment is established, and none has knowledge of that day but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, welcome back to the Voice of Islam platform with myself and Shaykh Bilal Phillips, all the way from Addis Ababa, who's the head and the founder of the International Open University, and it used to be, of course, the Islamic Online University. Is it, Shaykh? IOU used to be.
Yeah, it's the International Open University, as behind me here, and
Yeah.
it was called the Islamic Online University.
Yeah.
And we shifted once our courses, which were not purely Islamic, exceeded the number of courses which were Islamic. So, so as to avoid confusion, we called it instead Open University.
Yeah, good. So, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh, for joining us once again. Of course, we've been doing the last 2 weeks the 7 habits of truly successful people. The 7 habits of truly successful people is something which is based on a book that you once read by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Successful People. And then you had taken it and said, well, how can a person be truly successful? And that is that these are the 7 points we're just about to go through. So maybe you'd like to just go through them very quickly, Shaykh. And then, by the way, brothers and sisters, this is your opportunity, the one you've been waiting for, to ask questions on the topic of 7 habits of truly successful people. We've got some questions from last week from the New Zealand platform for Shaykh Bilal, but we're asking you guys to post your questions on the topic. So first of all, Shaykh, if you'd like to, Bismillah, review the 7 points.
Inshallah. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last messenger of Allah. As you rightly said, the title, The 7 Habits of Truly Successful People, was taken from Stephen Covey's work on motivational work on how to be successful. But his focus was, as he called it, the 7 habits of highly effective people, which he deduced from looking at people who were financially successful, because that was the measure. Finance, who were the billionaires, the multi-billionaires, multi-millionaires, and what were their characteristics? Included among them is Trump.
Yeah.
Judge, even though you could have your billions, but if you got by people and all these other things, this is not real success. You're not really that, just a big cheat. But what we said was, what's most important to us as Muslims is true success. What is the ultimate success that any Muslim can strive for? What is above everything else? And it is Jannah. So the truly successful are those who make it to Jannah. And then, okay, those people already Jannah, we can't really try to deduce from them what were the characteristics. But Alhamdulillah, among he identified a number of them. There are 10 famous ones, and the numbers who he said would be among the people of paradise. So we understand that this designation by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was not something random. You know, he liked this companion's beard, so he said, okay, he amongst the people of paradise. In another one, he dressed nicely, so okay, he likes the way he dresses, so he's going to be among the people of paradise. It wasn't random personal decisions on the part of the Prophet ﷺ. This was revelation which came to him from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through angel Gabriel, and on the basis of that he designated those whom Allah designated as lessons for us. It wasn't just a matter of the top are on a list, pick their little prize, whatever, and that's it. No, because there was something special about them that they were doing, something which Muslims need to do, because they are not superhuman. They were not doing what would not be done by others, but they were doing the right things. And in order to emphasize the importance of those right things, Allah revealed to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about his own companions, those who would be among the people of paradise. So this was the purpose or reason for designating these habits. And of course, 7 is just a number. Yes, there are 7 days in the week, and there are 7 heavens and 7 hells, and there are a number of other 7s. But we just chose this for convenience, not revelation. The 7 is not revelation. So the first habit which we focused on was the knowledge habit, seeking knowledge in order to correct one's beliefs and understandings. Because, as we said, getting to paradise requires knowledge of Allah, knowledge of the Messenger of Allah, and knowledge of the Deen of Allah. So we looked at companions who had these characteristics, and among those that we mentioned, were those who converted to Islam, like the Jewish rabbi who converted, and the Prophet ﷺ spoke about him as being among the people of paradise. We spoke about Umar ibn al-Khattab also about being among those people because of the fact that he had been blessed with a number of factors which we consider to be knowledge factors, like being revealed in accordance with his opinion when he himself and the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr and others discussed matters. That when Umar ibn al-Khattab would advise the Prophet ﷺ, it's not whenever, certain occasions when he did advise, and opinions of others were taken, and revelation came. It came on a number of occasions according to the opinion of Umar ibn al-Khattab. And we talked about the dream the Prophet ﷺ had. He was given milk and he drank it, and he gave them to Umar, and was asked about, well, what does this mean? The Prophet ﷺ said, knowledge. So we understand from that And of course, this is key in terms of the realities that we know that when the Prophet ﷺ informed us that whoever believes in Allah on the last day, man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah, will enter paradise, right? You know, whoever states la ilaha illallah, but we understand from that that it's not just a statement, but having understood that statement. You know, because without the knowledge of it, the ritual statement of la ilaha illallah is not going to get anyone anywhere. So that was our first habit. Our second habit was that of connecting ourselves or committing ourselves emotionally to that belief. Because not enough for us to academically believe. Because Satan academically believed. He knew who Allah was. He knew that He was one. He knew that He should the only one to be worshipped, etc., etc. He knew all of that, and he knew that he was supposed to obey Him, as the other angels did. But yet, when they were commanded to obey, he didn't, because that commitment was not a commitment from the bottom of his heart. This is the bottom line, that if that commitment is not real, because when we talk about the bottom of the heart, we're talking about it being foundational with us, that we have that real belief is going to cause and create emotional responses from our limbs, you know. And among those emotional responses that the Prophet ﷺ spoke about was that of crying, you know. And in other narrations, he spoke about one, you know, who mentioned tears comes to their eyes when they remember Allah. Tears comes to their eyes, you know. And we talked about the companions who are known for crying in the prayers, etc., like Abu Bakr, and that was the emotional commitment. And it is also expressed in the statement the Prophet ﷺ made, you know, that none of you has truly believed until I become more beloved to him or her than anything in this world. Similarly, belief in Allah, connected to that belief in Allah, is that we also love Allah more than anything in this world. So loving both Allah and His Messenger more than anything in this world is an essential principle of the faith. And that is the emotional commitment, because that's what love is about. Love is an emotion. It's translated into actions, but it is fundamentally an emotion. The third habit was that of having complete trust in Allah. Having complete trust in Allah. And there are so many verses, of course, in the Quran where Allah speaks about the believers having complete trust in Allah. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. Those, whoever is going to be trusting, they should trust in Allah, as Allah told us. So, and you know, we talked about the example from some of the companions, you know, who demonstrated that. You know, when he asked, you know, who will guarantee me that they won't ask anybody for anything, and I will guarantee him paradise. We knew of the companion who, Abu Dhar, who said that he would, and he didn't ask anybody for anything, as far as we know, from that point onward. And of course, it's not to say that that's what we all have to do in order to be among the mutawakkilun, those who trust in Allah, put our full trust in Allah. But practically speaking, it comes out of our practice, our daily lives. If we trust in Allah, it is clear. It will be clear. If we don't trust in Allah, that will also be clear too. We'll be constantly in doubt, constantly in depression, constantly fearing this and fearing that. So this is a key factor which the Prophet ﷺ identified. And the examples we have already, I don't need to repeat it. Those who would like to see the examples from the companions, they can go to the recording, which has been saved on my Facebook page, as well as on the Voice of Islam Facebook page, and other locations in like YouTube, etc. The fifth habit, or sorry, the fourth habit is that of patience and patient perseverance, to be patient. And there's so many verses in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, describes the patient as being those who, as being those who would inherit paradise. Like the verse from Surah Al-Baqarah where Allah spoke about وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ, that I will test you and try you in this world, etc., with your wealth, your lives, your everything. And in the end, he said, فَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. So give glad tidings to those who are patient. And patience, of course, is an expression of trust in Allah. See, actually, all of these are interrelated, because if you don't have the knowledge of Allah also, you will not understand how to trust Allah. And furthermore, if you're not trusting Allah, you will not be able to be patient. So, and then the examples which were given, from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, as we said, can be found in our recorded sessions from previous. On to habit number 5, and that is striving for modesty. We looked at the fact that the Prophet ﷺ had said that modesty is from the deen. You don't have modesty, you don't have deen. It comes down to that. And the significance of modesty, of course, today is huge. Society has gone so far away from modesty that we can see that the basic characteristic of Western society, which now dominates the world, is immodesty. What is in the airwaves, in the internet, in the books, in the magazines, in the movies, in the whatever, it is, filled with immodesty. And that is the consequence of a society that has drifted away from God. All you have to do is go back to the beginning of the 19th century, and the beginning of the 20th century, and you look even at that time. I remember seeing some pictures from New York, from the Coney Island beach out there in New York, big major place where families would go and swim, etc. And they showed the pictures of the families in their swimming gear, men and women, covered right up from their ankles to their necks, and the heads of the women. The men, completely covered, like diving suits, but of course looser. But that was the beginning of the 20th century. Now, the 21st century, you go there, it's a'udhu billah, a Muslim cannot go there and be proud of his deed. You have to find some other location to enjoy this type of recreation, swimming, etc., which is far away from modern society. And the sixth habit was to be content with destiny. To be contented with destiny. that what Allah has decided for you, you are satisfied with. As the Prophet ﷺ told us, don't look to those above you, because you'll never find contentment with what Allah has destined for you. But look to those below you, and you will realize in gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you find out of that gratitude contentment with your destiny. And the seventh habit was the sacrifice, that we sacrifice our wealth, our families, our lives for the sake of the deen. And the Prophet ﷺ gave us explanations with regards to the various forms of sacrifice, where people do so voluntarily, as well as where people lose their lives without choice, but if one accepts it patiently, then one is accepted into the halls of the martyrs. Like people who drown, people who have buildings crumble and fall on top of them, all these people who, in the course of this, which happened to them, they maintained their faith. They didn't give up their faith in God, curse God, or whatever else that may happen for those who don't have proper faith. They maintain their faith, and so Allah accepts them amongst the ranks of the martyrs. So those are the 7 groups that we spoke about, groups of people, of Muslims, and who would inherit paradise. And they are, for a Muslim, the truly successful people. They are the people who should be our ideals. We should find ideals from among them, and our family should know them. They should be familiar with them. We should name our children from among those who made that kind of sacrifice. So when our children ask us, "Oh, my name, who was this?" And you will be able to tell them, "Oh, it was such and such a companion of the Prophet ﷺ who did this, did that, did the other, and Allah promised him paradise through Prophet Muhammad ﷺ." They should be the ideals. We should take from all of these groups, and there are others. This is not, remember I said in the beginning that it's not limited to 7. But from them, we should have these people known, known examples. We should tell these as stories to our family members, about these people, and have them enshrined within our homes. Whether you write out that story and you put it up on the wall, this is something worth putting on the wall. And some of us were putting Ayatul Kursi and all these other things, but in Arabic we don't even understand what it's saying. Written so small we can't even read it. That's useless. But putting something on the wall, which when you look at it, either you read it and you understand something from it, or it's pictorial, it represents something which is inspiring Islamically, etc. This is what we need to put in our homes. Barakallahu fikum. And with that, I'll turn it over to you all for the questions, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Bilal, and audience. So that has been having real problems. You've got better connection in Africa than I do in the UK. That says a lot for the state of play. There we are. What do you think, Sheikh? Should all move to Africa, right?
Well, I'm moving to Turkey.
Ah, you're moving to Turkey now?
Well, yeah, thinking about it very seriously.
Yeah. Okay.
Not that I've given up on Africa, because the headquarters of our university is in Africa. So
yeah,
we'll always, Africa is a part of us. I mean, it's part of my own ancestry. But inshallah, Africa is
Inshallah.
still there, and I will be spending a lot of time in Africa. We have our major projects for scholarships, 1 million scholarships for
Yeah.
African youth. We're working on and setting up learning centers to be able to implement it across the country, across the continent. So,
Yeah.
commitment is there. I'm there, but Turkey is very alluring, very
Yeah.
attractive. I've had so many friends in the last year come in, have come now, made hijrah from the US, from the UK, from Malaysia, from all over, making
Inshallah.
hijrah in Turkey and telling me,
Yeah.
you've got to come.
You got to come.
Inshallah.
You got to come. We need some teachers there as well. Right. So Para Firdos says, how do we create pious connection with friends and family? Friends and family are often the cause of why we do certain things, because we crowd together with a certain group of people, and maybe their habits are not of a successful believer, you know. So the question really is creating pious connections with friends and family.
Well, I think basically we have to be selective. We have to be selective. I mean, we don't break ties with our family, because Prophet ﷺ said, whoever breaks ties with family would not enter paradise. So obviously we don't want to go to that point. But at the same time, we may reduce contact. We have family members who are bad influences. Whenever they come over or whenever you go over, your kids are, badly influenced by them. They are, you can see the damage being done before your very eyes. When you have situations like that, you do have to cut down your visits, cut down their visits. If it's something you can't avoid, whatever, move.
Mm.
You're moving for the sake of your family, for your deen, and that is praised by Allah. Those amongst people who end up in paradise are those who also have made hijrah, for the sake of Allah. So that is fundamental when it's when the family is in danger. You have to be able to read those danger signs early. You don't wait until after the damage has been done and it's just wreaking havoc in your family. Then you realize, it's so and so and so and so. It's too late. The damage has been done virtually.
Yeah.
So you try to do it early. And that's one level. The other level, of your relations is that when you may have gatherings, etc., with them, you try to ensure that there is an clearly Islamic element in that gathering, in that visit, in that point of gathering, etc. To make sure it's not just a free for all. It is a plan. You should have a plan. That's the case. As they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. This is a basic principle. So you have to have a plan. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had plans. Whatever he was doing, he planned things out carefully. We also have to plan carefully. So where we are conscious and we make the correct plans, then inshallah, we can be the greater influence, and we can benefit our family members, and friends more than they can harm us. That's the point where the benefit is greater than the harm. When the harm becomes greater than the benefit, no matter how much you do, the harm that's coming far outweighs the benefit that you're trying to convey, then that's time to make hijrah.
Inshallah.
Hijrah meaning not necessarily packing your bags, and going to another country, it could be the basic hijrah away from what is displeasing to Allah. Because the Prophet ﷺ had said, Al-Muhajir man hajara ma naha Allahu anhu. That the Muhajir, the one who makes hijrah from the Islamic perspective, is one who leaves, emigrates away from what Allah has forbidden.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Bilal, for that answer. Very conclusive answer. We've got some other questions here. I'm just trying to say, there's one brother saying, Sheikh Bilal, habit is attaining proper knowledge, the first habit that we've mentioned. I would like to thank you. You can tell us what subject he should start to follow immediately. He's 46 and he wants to know what is the best approach and subject to attain knowledge. Well, maybe we could refer him to the International Open University.
Yeah, I mean, that's formal. I'm sure at 46 he's not necessarily thinking in terms of formal education. But if we start with the informal, we can say that to begin is knowing Allah. This is the beginning point. We need to know Allah. So it means that you need to read, sit in circles, whatever, watch programs which talk about Allah. Until, for you to get a clear picture of Allah and your belief, what it should be in Him, your responsibilities to Him, etc., etc. So that's the beginning point, and that comes also from reading the Quran, and reading the Sunnah, books which are compiled around those particular topics. But that's the beginning. If he wants to know the beginning point, that's where to begin. I mean, to go and list off the other points, no point. What you need to focus on right now is knowing Allah, being clear, being completely clear as possible. The university is something which can help you in part of that from the perspective of our free diploma that we have. There are courses there on Aqidah, etc. So you can take those which deal with Aqidah. That is knowing Allah. That's the core of knowing Allah intellectually, emotionally, and practically living that knowledge.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Another question is, I have issues procrastinating. How can I resolve these issues and become more successful? Procrastination.
Well, it depends on the type of procrastination that you're engaged in, and what you can do to ensure that you do what you're supposed to do. I would say that on one hand, you need to turn to Allah and ask for His help, because without His help, you will not achieve anything. So this is a beginning point. You can read about those who are the good examples to us in the deen of the past and the present, and see how they made full use of their lives. You can be around those who are doers, who don't procrastinate. You can sit with people who are professionals in this field, who can give you advice in terms of steps to take for avoiding procrastination. There is no end of different approaches and avenues that we can follow, but the core, I think, will come back for a Muslim. For a non-Muslim, they may base it on other factors, but for us, it becomes one uh, on ibadah, on worship. That if we procrastinate, if we find that we are procrastinating in our prayers, meaning we should, the best prayer is prayer at the beginning of the time. As Prophet ﷺ has said, the best salah is that which is done in the beginning of its time. If we are among those, likely, if we are procrastinators, for sure, almost, we're going to be among those who, we will pray at the end of its time. We'll end up, going into the prayer time regularly. This will be a regular habit, and that's our daily relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we procrastinate with that daily relationship, that's why I say focus on that as Muslims, then we should not be surprised to find that we're procrastinating in the areas of our dunya also. So I would say one of the major steps that we can take is to remove procrastination from our ibadah. Because our procrastination in relationship to Allah, this is going to destroy this world for us. Our procrastination with regards to things of our jobs, our commitments to our friends and families and so on. So, that is not good, but it's not destroying this world. But the prayer, procrastination there, our faith, this is a foundation of our faith, the salah. This now destroys. So therefore we get that in order. And if we can get our daily prayers, our 5 times daily prayers, done at the beginning of its time on a consistent, regular basis, then you will find that being consistent in our other areas will become much, much, much easier.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Which way and where should we learn the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He wants to know how can we connect with the seerah? Practically and academically.
Well, academically, knowing the seerah, one of the best books on seerah is the life of the Prophet, life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by the Libyan scholar As-Salabi. Look for this, As-Salabi. There are some others, Rahiq al-Maktoum, and others are there, which are also useful, relatively authentic, to a large degree. But As-Salabi's is one of the best. Also, you have Fiqh al-Sirah. Fiqh al-Sirah, which focuses on the lessons to be deduced from the Sirah. Because in the end, it's not about a story. That we learn this story, like we learn the story of Goldilocks or Snow White, stories which were entertaining as children, whatever. We shouldn't teach the Sirah in that way. Even to our children, when we teach them the Sirah, we should teach them, of course, obviously, these are the ones who at least have enough consciousness to understand, but we teach them and try to always take from the Sirah the lessons from the Sirah, so that they understand that the Sirah is something which has guidance. It has practical value. It's not just a story. So this is what I would say would be the approach that we should take for ourselves and our families when we are studying it, finding the right books first, the authentic books. And there's also Sirah according to Hadith, the authentic Hadith. This is another is quite good. But it is not about collecting facts and knowing these facts. It is about what is the message and the lesson that we're supposed to be extracting from these facts. The Prophet ﷺ was the blueprint. He was the example. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself said in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. There is in the Messenger of Allah for you the best example. So I think this approach, seeking the lessons. What lesson is there? Because as you read and you study, maybe some points are raised that you don't understand. Okay, what's the significance of this aspect of the Prophet ﷺ's seerah? You know, but be sure that there are lessons in all of the Prophet ﷺ's seerah, because Allah sent him as the guide.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much for that answer. Again, my internet is pretty poor, so I do apologize, guys. But, you know, we'll make dua that England can get better internet connection than Africa soon. Right, so that was a good... There's a question here that keeps coming up, Shaykh, so I'm going to go for it anyway. Standing up for national flags, is it permissible in Islam? I mean, it's probably nothing to do with the topic, but it keeps coming up, and I thought, well, we better answer this one.
Well, as a general principle, we can say that if Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when his companions, those who had gone to Persia and Rome, during his lifetime and came back with these practices, when they tried to do it for him, because surely he's greater than the rulers of Rome and Persia, so they wanted to stand up for him, stand up in his presence, he forbade them from standing for him. He told them, do not stand for me. One who desires and who is pleased with others standing for him, standing in the hellfire. So obviously, as a general in Islam, we don't stand for national anthems. We don't stand for, great individuals, etc., as a general principle. But of course, you might find yourself in a situation, if you don't stand, you'll end up in jail. Or if you don't stand, you won't get your citizenship. When they're making you pledge your citizenship, you've gone to England or Canada or America, seeking citizenship there, you want to live there, a better life for yourself as you see it, and the time comes that the anthem is played and you have to, put your hand on your heart and stand up. If you don't do it, then you don't, you don't get that citizenship. Now, for those who don't have to go there, that's okay. They can say, okay, I don't really want to do this. I don't need to do this, so I'm not gonna do it. But for those people, who have been driven out of their homes, they're refugees in their own countries and all this, and now you put that before them. Listen, if you don't stand, you don't get this citizenship. Then this is where you say, well, if you stand, you make sure in your heart you ask Allah's forgiveness. You make sure in your heart is filled with iman when you're doing this. This is for your survival. So in that circumstance of necessity, you do it. And as much as you can avoid it, you avoid it. So the circumstances will determine, how does one deal with that circumstance. We've seen the football players, the basketball players, and others refuse to stand, and you see the response that has happened across the country, and Trump, and attacking these people and all this, and it's not the law. This is not the law of the country. This is just tradition. So the point is that as much as we can avoid it, we avoid it. You set up your own school, Islamic school, you don't have the kids stand. If you're going to study in a non-Islamic school and that's a requirement, otherwise you're kicked out, there's no other means of education, and believe, okay, they stand. You tell your kids, you do it, but this is not right. We're only doing it because you need to study. Yeah, so you handle your situation, accordingly, with what is most appropriate. Ask Allah's forgiveness, if you end up being forced to whatever degree, and try to find some other land or city or institution or whatever which will not require you to do this.
Sheikh Bilal, remember not to stand in future. No, I'm only joking. Right. That wasn't a good joke. Because Sheikh Bilal would be laughing.
No, okay. You did mention let me just mention, because you did bring up a point which I meant to mention, but it slipped me. That there is a hadith of a companion coming from being abroad or whatever, came back into Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ told the companions to stand for your companion, this one who was coming, but it was to greet him, to stand and greet him. Get up and greet him, rather than you all sit back. He comes. You're showing your happiness to see him and everything. You get up, you greet him, you hug him, and then you sit back down. It's not that you get up. He walks in the door. Everybody gets up and they keep standing until he comes in and sits down. Then they all sit down. So the distinction between the two should be made. And that hadith is authentic. Should not be used to counter the clear hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he told the companions not to stand.
Sheikh Bilal, we've got a question. How do we control our anger and grudges that we harbor in our day-to-day lives against people? I think is a big issue.
Controlling anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Prophet ﷺ had given us some general guidelines, that when you're angry, if you're angry when you're standing, sit down. And if you're still angry while sitting down, go and lie down, change your position. If you find yourself, how we can apply that is not that you're in a group setting with people and you get angry whilst you're with them, so you just lie down in your place there. That's kind of, it's not going to work too well, right? But that's what the hadith seems to imply. But what's implied in it is shifting one's position. So if you are in a sitting and this thing becomes this way or that way, then get up and leave. Get up and leave. Go make wudu. Whatever. Shift your position. Don't stay there because you're already boiling. the best thing is get out of that situation, shift your position, whether it be standing here or go sitting somewhere else or whatever, that can help. That can help to control the anger. But we do know that this is a challenge. And even one of the companions who came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him, what can I do to get to paradise? He said, don't get angry. He told him, don't get angry. So, okay, you have an anger problem, then put this in your head. You want paradise? Then don't get angry. That's what you have to deal with. That's your struggle. You have to get a hold of that anger. You have to control it. And that control is not necessarily something which is going to come overnight. You recognize that you shouldn't get angry. You know you shouldn't get angry. And so you tell yourself, I'm not going to get angry. No, it doesn't necessarily change just like that. So what you do is that you commit yourself to pretend not to be angry. That's your starting point. Commit yourself to pretend not to be angry. Don't commit yourself not to get angry, because that's your problem. That you can't escape one. But what you can do is at least pretend externally that you're not angry. So when the situation arises, even though inside you're boiling, you're exploding, externally, you're calm. Fight to gain control of your external. And as you master, it's not to say that you just decide that, okay, fine, that sounds like a good idea. Let me try that tomorrow. So tomorrow comes and, such a circumstance arises. You try, but you fail. It doesn't work. This is not something that just happens like that. It's like riding a bicycle, The first time you get on it, how many of us were able to get on the bicycle the very first time, just get up there and start riding right away? Very, very few people. Most people get up there, you stumble, you fall down. Okay, what do you do? Try again. So you keep trying, you're trying till eventually you're able externally to gain control, so you don't show your anger externally. After mastering the external, the internal will follow. And this is based on a principle that the Prophet ﷺ told us with regards to patience, right? And this is related to anger, because when people get angry, they usually become impatient. So he said, وَمَنْ يَتَصَبَّرْ يُصَبِّرْهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever pretends to be patient for the sake of Allah, obviously, Allah will grant him patience. So similarly, whoever pretends to be not angry, Allah will grant him control of anger. And this is a general principle we apply to all of our emotions, all of the other emotions that we have that sometimes we don't have the ability to control them, etc. We gain it through external pretense, repeatedly done, produces an internal response.
Shaykh, okay, there's a repeated question here about recommendations for different translations of the Quran or apps for the Quran. The one I use is Quran Hive, because it does word for word translation, and it's all So it gives very good 4 or 5 different tafsir. So can you recommend one, Sheikh, or two?
Well, if we're talking tafsirs, then of course, Ibn Kathir's tafsir in English, as well as in Arabic and in Urdu, is among the best tafsirs that one can work with, because it's tafsir of Quran focused on Sunnah. The narrations, it's not just the opinions of the individual, but whatever is mentioned there, we can say 90% of it or 80% of it is backed up by authentic hadith. So that's for interpretation and understanding. For general reading, one is reading Arabic and they want to read an English translation, then it's about whichever one you feel most comfortable with. I would say that in general, the Sahih International is one of the most accurate, and Muhsin Khan is also most accurate in terms of translation. But Muhsin Khan is clumsy reading wise. If you have to read it over the airwaves and that with all the bracketed inclusions and things, it's just I encouraged those who were reprinting it to remove all those inclusions and just stick with the main text, or those inclusions which help to give the meaning, include it. Why put it in brackets? So that the flow is there. Somebody can enjoy reading it. So you may find other translations which are done by mustashriqun, who we call the Orientalists and others. Might be better reading, might be easier reading, flowing ideas. But of course, the problem that you have with that is that they may have inclusions which distort the meanings in certain places and things like this. So probably better to stick with those that are the well-known approved translations.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. And also the Clear Quran is a very, very, very recent one written by Mohammad al-Katabi, I think it is, Kitabi, in Canada. And that's the one that IERA uses for its non-Muslim dawah. Amina B, she says, will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for sins that are repeatedly done after doing tawbah? If we die upon these sins, are we punished in the grave for them?
The sins which Allah has forgiven us for, whether we did them repeatedly or we only did them once, if they're forgiven, then obviously we will not suffer punishment for them. But if they're unforgiven, or sins that we sought forgiveness for but are seeking a forgiveness here, then we will suffer in the grave, as in the akhirah, if Allah doesn't absolve us of them on the day of judgment.
Okay, Sheikh. Right. Lots and lots of. There's actually a question here about Islam and spirituality. They want us to define what is being spiritual as a Muslim. What does that mean? That's a strange question, but I guess it's also quite an intelligent question. Because a lot of people tend to externalize their belief, and then internally there seems to be bereft of any thinking. or deep inner spiritual meaning?
Well, let's say that the basic pillars of Islam, if one does them with understanding, sincerely, then the Prophet ﷺ promises paradise. So the external is connected to the internal. We make sure that our external is proper, done in the most correct way, with the correct understanding, and that will build our spiritual internal understanding of the deen. If one focuses on the internal and neglects the external, then the likelihood is that one will go astray. Because what we describe as spiritual may come at us through different doors of corruption. In the spirituality, we know so much damage has been done. And in examples of the some of the so-called spiritual groups, or we call them Sufi groups, and movements, etc., where the leaders have promised their followers all kinds of things, and probably in the foremost of all of this is the Naqshbandi order of the wing or branch, which was led by Shaykh Nazim al-Qubrusi, very famous, with many followers in the UK, US, all around the world. Even the ruler of Brunei was one of his followers. Many of the princes and princesses are followers. And I mean, this it's a movement, they want to connect to the movement, no problem. But when the leader of the movement tells his followers that when they die, the angel of death will not take their soul. He will be there to take their soul and deliver it to the angels of the next life. And furthermore, when they're in the grave, the state of the grave, and the angels, Munkar and Nakir, come to them and ask them, Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord? Man Nabiyuk, and who is your messenger? Oma Dinuk, and what was your religion? He will be there in the grave beside each and every one of his followers, whispering to them, Muhammad, Islam. So they have nothing to worry about. He has guaranteed them. So this is spiritual hijacking. They were hijacked spiritually. They believed so much in him that he was able to convey these messages, and they accepted it. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi. That is the danger. Where the focus has been on this, and these are recorded, what I've mentioned here are recorded in his series of the magazines called the secrets behind the secrets behind the secrets. You know, this kind of spiritual hijack when a person doesn't know the external deen. If he or she knows the external deen, then this is not possible, inshallah, as a norm. So, of course, we need a balance. The deen should not be rituals, external rituals, with no internal core, kernel. But that internal kernel and core needs the external to protect it. When you remove that external, the internal is corrupted, is destroyed. It goes in the wrong direction. It doesn't have direction, proper direction. So what we seek is a balance. And that's what Muhammad demonstrated for us. He demonstrated a balanced life. You know, when you go on the internet and you see the gatherings of these so-called spiritual Sufi tasawwuf movements, in their gatherings, and the people are jumping and jumping up in the air and here and there, and you know, all the kind of madness. I mean, they have gone beyond, you know, the churches of the West that are evangelical, where the people were doing all this stuff with the music, and you know, they're way out there, beyond them. The spinning of, you know, Mahlawi order, you know, with their heads turned and, you know, spinning around in circles, and the skirts are up, and you know, where did Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do these things? Did his companions do these things? No, they didn't. No matter what explanation that is given to you about why it is good to do these things, if the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it, no, it's not good. Because he said, مَا تَرَكْتُ شَيْئًا, I have not left anything, يُقَرِّبُكُمْ إِلَى اللَّهِ, which will bring you closer to Allah, إِلَّا وَأَمَرْتُكُمْ بِهِ, except I told you to do it. So anybody who comes along and tells you that this is going to bring you closer to Allah, you into the spirit of Islam, then if the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it, that's the criterion that we have. That isn't, you could say it's an external criterion. They say it's external. Prophet ﷺ said, I left with you two things. If you hold on firmly to them, you'll never go astray. The book of Allah and my Sunnah. The book of Allah and the Sunnah. But that's what he said. He said, if you hold on firmly, not that you take the physical book and, you know, hold it in your hand, you know, here it is, okay, I've got the Quran and I've got the Sunnah here, and this is, I'm holding on firmly to it, you know, very tight, as tight as I can. No. It's not what he's talking about. He was talking about firmly to what is it they contain. It's to the content. What the Quran contains, not the physical Quran, but what the message, the guidance of the Quran and the guidance of the Sunnah and the message of the Sunnah. If we hold on firmly to them, we will never go astray. That was the promise of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So that is our salvation.
Inshallah, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. A few more last questions before we wind up the show. Okay, so we've got one here which is quite appropriate, you know, in considering the 7 habits of a successful person in this world. How how do we help our brothers and sisters deal with oppression and anxiety in these trying times across the world?
Well, oppression is a huge term. Anxiety is, an individual experience. How do we oppression in the world? I advise people ask Allah to alleviate oppression, especially Muslims. Do what you can in your area. The Rohingyas out of their homes. You can send aid, food aid, whatever, to help them. You do what you can, given your limited resources and means. That's global oppression, big time. In terms of the anxiety, your individual anxiety, then you have to look at how it is manifest. How is your anxiety manifest? This is a general term, a very general term. So it may manifest in different ways in different people. But for sure, for every aspect of anxiety that we might display or might be overcome by, the Sunnah, the Quran, deals with it. It provides patience, confidence to handle whatever anxieties we are faced with. And the firmer we are in understanding the Quran and the Sunnah, the stronger we will be to overcome the anxieties that we may face. So the question, as I said, is a very general question, and the answer would need to be general unless somebody has something specific. Or Brother Yusuf, if there's a particular aspect of anxiety that you wanted to bring out here for general discussion, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was a very general one, Shaykh, and it's a general one about really. I think the aim is to try and get people to focus on reliance upon Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and seeking correct knowledge, which are the two points that we've raised in the 7 points. The Dahlia is repeatedly asking this question, so I'm going to put it to you. I think probably will be the last question, unfortunately, today for the viewers. But Sheikh, please answer the question. One of my relatives died. She went to a magician thinking was pious, thought it was Islamic treatment, but may have caused the spread of disease and killed her. Allah knows best. But she made istighfar generally before her death. Would she be forgiven for this mistake? She didn't know what the magician was or magic was. And then she goes on to say, which is a bit contradictory, to be honest, can we use the pots in which things were told to burn by the magicians? Can I pray for her and give sadaqah on her name? So she's gone to a magician thinking that she's going to get correct.
Your mother.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, that was error, obviously. I mean, and she's saying magician. I mean, I think she means really, a witch or a warlock. A person who is involved in different aspects of magic or witchcraft. Um, and of course, it's very popular and very widespread around the world, even in the Western world, where people, are supposed to be secular and don't believe in superstition, etc. But it's deeply embedded in societies. So the mother went and she mentions that the mother sought, but it's not clear. Did she seek forgiveness for having gone, meaning before she died, she realized it was incorrect, so forgiveness from Allah for it. Um, of course, if she got forgiveness, sincere forgiveness, then Allah can forgive it. That's done, finish, end. But if she sought forgiveness um, without understanding what she was seeking forgiveness for, if she just ritually said astaghfirullah or something like this, then this obviously is not going to deal with the issue, because forgiveness is valid when what is being sought forgiveness from or for is clear. One has recognized the error, one's error, one has fallen into error, and you seek forgiveness. Oh, Allah, forgive me for having done this, or having said that, or having thought this, etc. So we can't talk about whether Allah is accepted or not accepted when these issues are not clear. We don't have knowledge of these issues. With regards to witches or warlocks, instructions to boil things in her kitchen, using the pots and pans, etc., of that were available. Can you use these now after washing them, cleaning them? Can you use them? Technically, you could. Technically, you could. But I would say that if certain items were dedicated for that, then it would be better not to use them. Get rid of them and get new pots and pans. If it was just her regular cookware, which she used to cook, and then she used some of them to do certain things, then you may continue to use it. But if she dedicated certain pots and pans and other items specifically for these items, then it's better to get rid of them and not use them. I mean, this is based on the Prophet ﷺ's, instructions to the companions of the Prophet ﷺ to destroy, when alcohol became prohibited, to destroy those which were commonly used for drinking or brewing alcohol.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Bilal. We've reached the end of the show today, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, bless the audience, and enable them to act upon the advices of these 7 habits of truly successful people in this world, by adhering to the correct knowledge, be reliant upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be emotionally attached to that knowledge, to of course have to seek modesty and to be patient upon all the advices of these 7 habits, inshallah, bi-ithni Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's been a very successful program, the last 3 programs, because we've had tons and tons of questions thrown at us that we haven't unfortunately aren't able to answer all of them today. But we call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to find us solutions in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Mohammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Indeed, those are the 2 sources of knowledge and wisdom that we take we take advices from, and we live according to, as Muslims, brothers and sisters. I thank Sheikh Bilal immensely for his contributions in the last, actually, 5 shows. We have had 5 shows. We had 2 shows on the successful Muslim parent, as it were, 7 habits, and then we had 7 on the successful, truly successful person or people in this world. And we ask Allah to help us to do some more shows very soon, inshallah, that will let all the audience know what that will be and when it will be ahead of time, inshallah. And closing words from you, Shaykh Bilal, and we can go.
Barakallahu fikum. You've done the job already, everybody, and I would reiterate for being present and taking benefit from this program. Our intention is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We pray that your intention also is to please Allah, and that Allah put this in our scale of good deeds on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And with that, I bid you farewell. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi